they've started finally giving us things that they want to learn about. I mean, we still have to do the basics to just keep bringing everybody along as we get new hires, that kind of thing. But adding in, like, they wanted to learn more about green investing. It's like, oh, we can do that. Okay, right on,
That's Christine Zwerling, Head of Stock Administration at Asana. She's my guest today. Welcome to Invested at Work, a show about unlocking the power of workplace financial benefits for companies and their employees. I'm Rodney Bolden, Head of Industry Engagement and Learning for Morgan Stanley at Work, and your host. So what makes you invested at work? What makes equity compensation more than just a benefit? In today's episode, we explore how equity plans can drive employee engagement, alignment, and long-term retention. Christine, thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of Invested at Work. Can't tell you how happy I am to have you because you and I have talked a lot over the years.
A lot. One of my favorite people in the industry.
Same here. That's why I'm so excited to have you here. First, tell me, what exactly does Asana do, and also what is your role at Asana?
Asana is a workplace management tool. It's a place where when you're working on projects cross-functionally, everybody has their information accessible in the same place. So everybody's on the same page. And I think it's one of the reasons that when I got to Asana, I was so pleased that the comp team, the stock team, the recruiting team, everybody was on the same page about equity comp and how it works, because we have this tool that we use to just keep everybody in the loop and make sure it holds people accountable to getting their projects done, right? And then I manage the equity compensation programs at Asana. I'm very happy to be there. And we report up through the legal team.
Oh,
yeah.
That's a little different. Usually I see it through the finance team. Is that correct?
It varies. The last few companies I've been at, we actually report through the legal team, which I think is a little bit more common for earlier stage companies, because so much of equity comp is based on contracts, RSU contracts and that kind of thing, and then it kind of merges over where it becomes more about the cost and the benefit, the finance part.
Makes sense.
But I do work very closely with our finance and accounting teams.
Oftentimes, a company, when it comes to equity compensation, will align it to certain goals they have for employee engagement or employee satisfaction. So tell me about how Asana does that. How do you align your equity compensation with your corporate goals? And also, second part, how has that changed over the years?
Yeah, as with many tech companies in the San Francisco Bay Area, equity compensation is a big part of our overall compensation program. We don't have, and this is very common in tech companies, and it's always fun when I talk to friends that are outside of tech, we don't have a bonus program. We don't have any other structured programs. You get your salary, and then you have your equity compensation. So your equity compensation becomes kind of that bonus program. And we really try to push with employees, like, you are an owner. When these shares vest, you are an owner of the company. You are, a stakeholder in the company. And it's kind of that helping them see that the things that you do can help grow the company also, and having that ownership feel, and having everybody kind of have that ownership feel, because owners take better care of things, right? And, as the company's growing and maturing, it helps the employees to help make decisions too, right? Like, it's kind of anything from, like, if you're buying office supplies, are you going to go out and buy the most expensive office supplies or the ones that cover your needs and are affordable? You're going to buy those because it's your company. So I definitely think that's something that we do. It's definitely part of their compensation. Employees understand that as the stock does better, I do better. But it also ties back to being an owner and having that ownership stake. And one thing that I have seen change, and I think a lot of companies have had this, just stock has been very volatile over the last few years, and including ours. And we've actually moved to a one-year grant program. They call it boxcar grants. And these had been popular a few years ago, and then they kind of fell away. And what it is you get a grant for a year and it vests quarterly, and then you get another grant that lasts for a year and it vests quarterly. That way, because our stock is so volatile, we can, because volatility goes both ways, we know.
Yes, it does.
Employees are happy when it goes up, but when it goes down, it's obviously not great. And so we're taking expense on those awards at whatever we granted it at. And if the stock price goes down, that's not good for the company, it's not good for the employees. But if we do these one-year grants, we're more likely to be able to give you the equity value that we intended at grant to match with your compensation range. So we've been doing this program now it's still fairly new. It hasn't even been a full year, but the employees seem to get it. I've talked to some of the recruiters, and the employees seem to understand that, okay, this is my compensation, right? It's not like, well, 4 years from now it might be this when the final shares vest, or it might be this. It's really a little easier for them to predict. So it makes it a little easier, and it makes it easier for some of the mobility taxation and that type of thing too, that I know you know about, but as a CEP, or almost CEP, ECA.
ECA, yes.
But it makes some of those things a little easier for employees to understand too.
Now, you mentioned recruiters, so you don't just let the employees know, but do you utilize equity compensation as a recruitment tool? And if so, how do you go about doing that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, understanding equity starts from the beginning, from the recruiter, helping the employees understand this is our philosophy, right? You get your salary and you get equity compensation, and this is what equity compensation is. And when the world opened up a little bit more during COVID, we were hiring, and this is not so much at Asana, but another company that I was at previously, we were hiring a lot of people outside the main tech world, so they didn't understand equity compensation. It wasn't something they were used to getting, and they were kind of like, no, I'd rather have a cash bonus than stock. It's like, no, you want the stock. You can really change that trajectory of your family wealth. So we actually created some recruiter videos to help the recruiters explain equity too, and because it is hard to explain, right? It seems almost too good to be true. Especially we do RSUs, which you just give them shares, and people are like, "You're just going to give me shares?" And I still remember my husband, and we've talked about our spouses before. God love him, but he has no idea what I do. And I remember he came home with a job offer one day, and he was like, "Sweetie, I got this great offer, and they're going to give me stock." And I was like, "They're not giving you stock." I was like, "You're doing an RSU, you have to earn it." And he was like, "No, they're just giving it to me." And I was like, okay, well, the recruiter obviously needs to learn, but show me your paperwork, and he did get an RSU and that. But it's hard for employees to understand that because it does seem too good to be true. But we have that philosophy where it's really from the beginning, right? The recruiter helping the candidate understand the value of equity and what it is. And then when they come in, when they are new hires, then it's us grabbing them and helping them understand, yes, okay, you got that equity. You may have taken the job and not fully understood what you were taking, but here's what it is and here's how you get it. And then moments that matter, so that when they're coming up on their first vesting, we're reaching out to them with like, hey, here's what's going to happen at your vesting. You may have kind of forgotten about this, or here, and kind of just all of those times that something's going to happen that they actually have to deal with it, because it's just trying to get that engagement with the stock programs, because a lot of it is just kind of hurry up and wait. And that wait period, they kind of forget about it, which is fine. But we want them to keep thinking like owners and making those ownership decisions. So it's kind of, when can we grab them and get them engaged?
That intentionality that you took to embed equity into your recruiting process is so vital. Let's talk about engagement.
Yeah.
Word you mentioned. So in our Morgan Stanley at Work State of the Workplace survey, what we find is that both HR leaders and also participants say that equity compensation is one of the most effective ways to keep them engaged at work. But it's not just a matter of just granting equity. A lot more goes into that. And I know you do a lot around employee education and engagement. What are some strategies that you can share with our listeners and viewers as to how you approach engagement and education on equity compensation?
Yeah, at Asana and a lot of tech companies is we have a very, very young early in career workforce. And we had to take a step back to help them understand just basic finances. It's not something they teach in college, right? How we do financial wellness courses on just budgeting 101. Just, how do you budget? What are the levels of budget? What do you pay off? And when you do have some money, where do you put it? Taxes in the US are complicated too. When they're doing their taxes from having sold RSUs, if they don't adjust the cost basis, they're basically being double taxed. And it's so scary for them when they get this huge tax bill. And we get these calls all the time with, around tax time, like I'm double taxed. And it's like, okay, did you adjust the cost basis? We put out these tax guides, use that. It will tell you exactly how to do it. And once they go back, then they realize, okay, they're not. But the IRS is more than happy to take that extra tax and not tell you. They will not audit it and be like, oh, you said too much. But it does really help the employees to understand, it's those building blocks, right? But we do a lot around just total financial wellness, understanding how the stock market works. A lot of employees don't understand that, right?
Yes.
And so you give them this thing and they're like, what do I do with it? Like, I don't, there's also a lot of inertia. I'll sit there with an employee. I've been at a number of IPO companies, and we'll log into their E-Trade account and get them, set up, and I'll see the value of their account, and it can be pretty big. And it's like, you should do something with this value. It's not working for you. And they get inert because they don't know what to do and they don't know where to go. And that's been great too, working with Morgan Stanley and having financial advisors come in and meet with the employees one-on-one. Because a lot of times they don't want to ask those questions in a group, right? They don't want to be the dumb one in the group, but they also don't know what to ask. So,
And it's so important to learn about the stock market because the Global Financial Literacy Excellence Center and TIAA Institute, they release an annual survey called the PFIN Index Survey, 28-question survey across 8 functional categories of financial knowledge to test Americans' financial literacy knowledge. Average score out of 0 to 100 is 49%. But the area that people understand the least, investing, comprehending risk, 2 things directly related to ownership of stocks.
Yeah. And I think I say we as like a global we because it's usually the executive team that has said, let's share stock with the employees. They get it. And they just assume the employees are going to get it, and they're going to understand that risk of ownership. And I use that term a lot when I talk to the employees about because they're always asking me do I buy or do I hold or sell? And I'm like, okay, I am not qualified to tell you this. I said, but you should talk to somebody about what that risk of ownership is in your situation, because it is a risk. And I see what happens a lot of times with employees, especially early in career, is they hold all of their company stock because they want to be a good corporate citizen. And that can be good, but also most investment advisors will tell them to diversify, right? All of your stuff is in the company. So it's one of those things that also, along with the financial wellness, it's just getting them educated on what resources are out there, right? I can't tell them, but there are plenty of people out there that can help them. And I think it's really important because it can change again, that generational wealth. One of the places that we start our financial wellness education, the last 3 companies I've been with, I start these programs. I start with the ERGs because I'm working with the groups that are underrepresented. A lot of people do have family members that might be able to help them, but there are so many people in those ERGs that need that extra support. They don't have a family member. This is the first time they've worked at a tech company. They don't have anybody to turn to say, do you put more money in your 401k or the ESPP? Or, they don't even understand what those programs are. And, finding also investment advisors, when I have them come in to talk to the employees, I try to find somebody from the background that they're talking to. If you're talking to our LGBTQ plus community, I want somebody from that community that's coming in to talk to them. If you're talking to our Black Asana, which is our Asana, our Black Asanas, I wanted somebody from that community. I don't want, somebody who doesn't look like you to be talking to you about this complicated thing that you're already feeling a little insecure about.
Right. Someone that can understand your journey. And the thing is that everyone has a different journey to financial well-being. Yeah. And sometimes that journey is impacted by whatever your identity may be. You may be a veteran. You may be a first-generation college graduate, like you said. And, my dad was a transit worker. Yeah. So I knew nothing about things like 401k or equity compensation. And certainly him working for the New York City Transit Authority, he couldn't tell me. Yeah. Had no way. Yeah. So I had to learn on my own and just navigate.
It was the same. And here I'm running these programs. My dad was a bus driver.
Ah.
So same thing, and it was one of those, they didn't have equity. They weren't sharing that. And even I joke sometimes with my friends in the industry. I was like, I have friends outside the industry. And when I talk about equity comp, they don't get it. They just,
Right.
I have friends in education and different worlds. And when I talk about our comp programs and how they work, they're like, you do what?
Right, exactly.
So
I understand,
it's very
yeah.
foreign, and it is very scary. I mean, 401ks are scary for people, and that's pretty managed. This
Right.
is something where we leave it all up to you. And I feel like for a long time in this industry, we would just tell you, we'll talk to your personal tax advisor. And I would just see those look on people's faces where it would just fall. It was like, I don't have a personal tax advisor. I do a 1040 EZ. Like,
Right.
what? And it's like, oh no, now that you sell stock, now you have to do a full tax return and all this. And it's a lot for somebody to take on. And I all of the programs, and I work great with, the Morgan Stanley E-Trade team too on coming up with education and figuring out who we're trying to educate. But I'm looking at the 80% of the employees. The top 20%, they have people. They're not afraid of it. They can go take care of themselves. I'm taking care of the rank and file employees who should be able to invest and do something with this and enjoy it and not be scared of it and not lose sleep over it. So.
And that's what I've always admired about you, Christine, is that your passion for caring for your whole employee base, not just, even though equity compensation is generally known as an executive benefit, that's not necessarily the case at Asana.
One of my favorite stories, it wasn't a company that I was working with, but I was talking to, stock admins, we nerd out about this stuff all the time because we're so passionate about it. But it was an employee that, I want to say it was an Amazon employee, and it was coming up on their stock options were going to expire soon. So they were trying to get a hold of this person to you need to exercise and, just he wasn't calling them back, wasn't doing it. Finally got a hold of him and said, you need to exercise your options. It's been 10 years, they're going to expire. We would hate to see that happen. You've worked, you've earned these, take advantage of it. And the guy was like, it was just, your typical crazy engineer, just, living his life. And he said, well, is it enough to buy a car? Because I told my wife I'd exercise it when it was going to buy a car. And they were like, it's a few $1 million. This was back from the Amazon early days.
Right.
And it was he just hadn't paid attention to it. And it's
Right.
I think those stories are funny, but I also think they're sad because, who knows if, the stock had been higher, he could have really done more with it and, donated more or done more for his community or anything. So I think they're funny, but I also think it's kind of oh, that was a missed opportunity right there.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
which we don't want people looking at stock price every day because it is
No,
a
of
lot of
course
it's
not.
out of our control. But we want people to understand that, you help grow the company and it does better and rising tides rise all ships, right?
It gives them a stake in the company's success.
Yeah.
And speaking about that, when we did our State of the Workplace survey and we asked, what is the most important aspect of getting equity compensation? Employees said, top answer, gives me a stake in the company's success. We asked the same question to HR leaders. They said it helps employees with their long-term financial goals like retirement. So slight disconnect there. I mean,
I saw that. I remember reading that and I was like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
But it makes sense because I'm talking to both of those people and I do
So
hear both of those.
Explain to me, how does it make sense?
It makes sense because of I'm trying to say this in a nice way. Us as an industry and the lack of how we educate our people. Because we do tend to just push it out there and off you go. My degree was in communication. So I have a different, not coming from a finance background. And so, yeah, that's where it's a little different. So I'm always thinking about we have to keep telling them. It's not just hey, here's your grant and this is why we're giving you the award, good luck. It's, this is why we did it. And hey, and the next day, hey, you got your shares. And now here's what we, and kind of just getting everybody on the same page. And hey, the reason we're doing financial wellness is because we want you to get this. And just reiterating, what is the company's goal for giving this to you? And, if you don't tell employees what you're hoping they get out of it, they're going to just think whatever they want to think. They're going to either think, oh, this is just a compensation program because that's, and not think it's ownership too. Or they're going to think, oh, it's just an ownership program because they keep telling me ownership, but not tell me it's compensation too. So
I'm glad to get your perspective on that, because that was my thinking when I saw that stat, is that we talk so much about creating that ownership culture. Congrats, you've created that ownership culture.
Yeah.
Employees are saying, yes, it gives me a stake in the company's success. I'm an owner.
Yeah.
But the duality of it, also saying, oh, it doesn't just do that, it also helps you with your financial goals. Like some of the examples that you shared where folks didn't know, hey, I have all this equity compensation, I can utilize it to buy a home, pay off my kids' college education, whatever your goal may be, or to have that extra money for retirement.
Yeah. And, it's definitely one of those things that I think that's what keeps me engaged in this industry is I love seeing when it clicks for an employee, that duality, that like, oh, I get it. Like, I have an ownership stake and I'm an owner, but this also, like, I can use this for planning. I'm not just dealing with my salary. Like, I can plan bigger things with this. My kid can go to college, or I can pay off my school loans, or, whatever is my goal whenever I get to a company and I'm trying to get budget for financial wellness, because nobody ever wants to spend money on it. We argue with this in the industry all the time too. Everybody says they want more education, but nobody wants to pay for it. Is I want our employees here because they want to work here, not because they're living paycheck to paycheck. And equity comp can help eliminate that, because it can help them pay things off that are forcing them to live paycheck to paycheck.
Well said.
And then I get the budget for
Exactly.
education.
Then you get the budget.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's a great argument, though.
It is. And doesn't everybody want your employees there because they love the company and they love their job?
Absolutely.
Yes.
I mean, we're in a period where we talk about low employee engagement. And you want your employees to say, hey, this is a place I want to work. So tell me, what are the biggest misconceptions employees have about equity compensation?
I think the biggest one is they think they're all going to be millionaires. The stock is going to do so well because we have the best product and it's amazing. And I was actually just talking, we do, every Thursday morning, we do open office hours in the office so employees can just swing by and ask us any questions. And I was talking to an employee and I said, you need to talk to a financial advisor because we are so gung-ho on our stock. Like, we think it's going to all go to $1 million, but that might not be the right decision. You need to talk to somebody just so you feel like you're making the right choices. And if it's to hold the shares, then hold the shares. If it's to sell it, it's that risk of ownership, and you just need to understand that you're making the best decision. But I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions I see, is that they're going to be millionaires. And then the other one is they don't understand the tax situation. And we, a lot of times we would just, in the stock plan documents, there'll be some tax information. It's very vague and brief and written by attorneys, and nobody reads it. And for a long time, the standard wording was just to say, talk to your tax advisor. And it just doesn't work. So we really have gone above and beyond to have we have tax sessions, somebody to come in and talk about taxes, just tax in general.
Right.
But then also to talk about how equity awards are taxed. And it's another place where getting money for that, budget for that, is that you have to make it very clear this is not advice. This is, you have to steer very clear of advice, because I've had some general counsels be like, we're not doing anything. And it's like, well, but we're not doing our fiduciary duty to our employees because they don't understand it and they're getting themselves in trouble. And it's like, oh, you're right. Okay, this is tax education and this is on top of what we provide. And they get that. Inside the US, it's a little easier to find tax information. You can Google things and ChatGPT and that kind of thing, but they appreciate having something come from the company. It just feels more credible. Especially outside the US, it's really hard for them to find tax education because it's so complicated, and not many of their local companies share equity with their employees. So it's hard for them to find that. It felt, I think that was kind of where the epiphany came from when I was like, oh, we need to do better. When I was sitting with an employee and I was like, you should talk to your personal tax advisor. And he was like, they were in Estonia. I think there are 2 million people that live in Estonia. And he's like, so like the Minister of Finance, he's my landlord. I could ask him. And I was like, yeah, no, we need to do better.
Right, exactly. Next time I'm looking for more budget, I think I'm going to talk to you because you seem to be very skilled at making the justification to the executives as to why this is a need, but it's all for the benefit of the employees, which is what I really like. What is the feedback from the employees about the education?
The feedback that I always get is they are just grateful for these classes. They've started. We've been doing it for about 2 years now. It takes a little while for them to get engaged. They've started finally giving us things that they want to learn about, which was so exciting for me. And I was like, yes, okay, we're at that level. I mean, we still have to do the basics to just keep bringing everybody along as we get new hires, that kind of thing. But adding in, like, they wanted to learn more about green investing. It's like, oh, we can do that. Okay, right on. Because we were a lot of times the Tanner, who's the analyst that I work with.
I know Tanner.
You know Tanner. Love Tanner. The employees love Tanner. He's our face of stock admin. So he's the one who runs our education programs. That's why you know him.
Tanner's great.
But they see him and they're like, oh, Tanner, I love these programs. But it was the two of us just kind of sitting in a room going, what do you think they'd want to hear about? And we found some things that worked really well. He did a course on cheap travel, how to use like travel points and all of that. Huge. The employees were so grateful for that. It was like, and it's just money saving there. We did another class, and remember our very young, early in career workforce on raising financially sound kids.
Oh, yeah, money savvy kids.
The money savvy kids. We had like 3 people come because they don't have kids yet. Exactly. Or the ones that do, they're babies and they're just trying to get through the day. Right. So it was like, okay, that's not who we're looking at. But that's when we did, E-Trade helped us do a survey of like, who are our employees? What is our persona that we're looking at? And it's like, oh, it's this person that's maybe their second job out of college, like, they're not educating their kids. They're not even having kids yet.
Right.
They want this. They want to, this and that. And how do they set themselves off? And we actually had a group who split off to start that. I forgot what it's called. FIRE. It's like something like retire early. Like they have embraced this so much.
Financial independence, retire early. FIRE movement.
Yeah, yes. Which I'm like, right on. You guys like go do it. And so they've gotten much more active. So I love that. I love they're helping each other. And then, they start looping other people in, and it's kind of building a little organically of getting new people coming through our programs.
In talking to younger people within the industry, they talk about finding that mentor, that person who's going to help them along in their career and give them that advice and guidance.
Yeah, I've actually... some people are my mentors and they didn't know it. So you always find those people that you just, when you talk to them a little, you're like, wow, this is a smart person. I need to learn from them. And right now, the NASPP actually has a program for women in the industry where they will match you up with an experienced stock administrator to mentor. And I have 2 people that I'm working with right now through that program. I have a couple of people that I've worked with in prior years, and we still talk every couple months or so just to check in and see if they need help on anything. But that's one way to go about it. There's just other ways. Some companies, bigger companies, will have more structured mentoring programs. You can talk to your HRBPs and see if they have something like that. But it's also just finding those people that are kind of at that level in your company that you're looking for that extra guidance. Like if you happen to report up through the finance organization, maybe there's somebody in the controllership org that could help mentor you. They don't have to necessarily know your job, but they can help tell you where to spend your time, things that you maybe are doing in your career to hurt yourself. I have one woman that I work with that is not in the stock plan industry, and after our first call, I said, okay, what I want you to work on in the next 2 weeks before we meet again is stop apologizing. Because something that women do a lot is, especially young women in the industry, you're like, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't do that. I'm so sorry. It's like, you don't need to apologize for anything. If you were late, that's fine. Say, hey, thanks for getting here. I'll work on it next time. I said, don't apologize. It takes away some of your credibility. So it's things like that you can find those people either at conferences, like, we're here at the Morgan Stanley Thrive conference, finding those people and just thinking like, hey, can we talk once in a while so I can learn more? And people I have found, especially in this industry, are so happy to lend their time.
That's what I love about the equity plan industry is that people are so open to those of us who don't come from that background, which I didn't, to sharing their advice, their guidance, their learnings from the industry. What are the trends that you're seeing in equity compensation that you think equity plan managers should be aware of coming in the next year or so?
I think it's something that is an industry we've been looking at for a couple of years, but just do we need to change how we're doing equity compensation? Is it still like the tech company RSU with the 4-year vesting, right? Is that still the gold standard of what we should be doing? Or like Asana, where we moved to the 1-year vest with the quarterly, grant with the 1-year vest. Is that something we're just trying it? I mean, I was really excited when our comp team said, hey, we're going to do this. I was like, oh, we're going to try something different. Because I think a lot of times we just get really stuck in this loop of like, here's what the big companies do, and here we're just going to do this. And I do feel like with the financial pressures and coming from, companies having to show profit and, companies, the investing community seeing, how we're using equity comp and how much the execs are getting, we need to make sure that we're using our equity well and doing the right things with it. I think that we're gonna start seeing more creativity in equity compensation. Maybe not. Maybe we'll keep doing the same old thing. But I do feel like we need to keep educating ourselves in what's available to work with our comp teams when they come to us and they're like, "Hey, we want to do this." To say like, "Hey, that's a great idea, but we need to pivot it like this because I can't administer it otherwise." Like when they're doing this 1-year grant. We typically have our grants approved quarterly at our board meetings, our comp committee meetings. And I said, well, if we're going to do that, I don't have enough time if somebody's hired here to get that grant approved, get their account open, and get them up because they will have 3 days to open their account before I'm going to vest their shares if it's quarterly. So we have to have a little bit longer leeway, or we need to switch our grant practices and use a UWC to have them, approved outside of a meeting. So you need to decide that. But without having that knowledge, when they came to me with the program, it could have really walked us into something where, every quarter we were struggling to like, oh my God, you have 3 days to open your account and then you're going to vest shares and you don't even know what it is and good luck.
Right.
So this built in some more time. So what we ended up doing is just building in a little bit more time. So employees, it's a full quarter before they get their shares. So we can make sure their account's open. They understand what's going to happen. They know what the resources are for tax and all of that.
One last question for you. So I know you're very passionate about what you do, but what makes you invested at work?
It's the employees. It's all about the employees. Like often Tanner does the office hours, but he was out on Thursday, so I got to do the office hours. And just seeing the employees' faces when they get it or we're able to help them, it gave me so much energy, and that's what it is. It's really, I am a big believer in sharing equity broadly because I think, one, it makes people owners, they enjoy work more, but it also can change that generational wealth and that trajectory of their families. And I've seen it. And so it's one of those things that I just have such passion about, helping the everyday employee get to that point. And when I get to see it, it just gives me so much energy and joy. That's why I come in every day.
Great answer. Christine, it has been my honor having you on this show because I've gotten to know you and I have tremendous respect for all that you do and your passion for helping the employees at Asana and all companies in which you've worked. So thank you so much for appearing.
Thank you, Rodney. I adore you and I would do anything for you. So thank you so much for having me on your podcast.
Thank you. If you're interested in more conversations about workplace financial benefits, subscribe to the show wherever you like listening to or watching podcasts. You can also visit us at morganstanley.com/atwork. Invested at Work is brought to you by Morgan Stanley at Work, hosted by me, Rodney Bolden. Our executive producers are Fiona Kelsey and Lisa Boyce. Our production partner is Sequel Media Incorporated.